12th rib, subcostal, iliohypogastric, ilioinguinal, genitofemoral, you see it big here, femoral branch, genital branch. It's a lot smaller on this side, femoral branch, genital branch. Lateral femoral cutaneous, right here, you see it coming out from underneath the psoas here. Big femoral, L2, L3, and L4 right there, with nerves to psoas and iliacus right there. Also from L2, 3, and 4, going to be obturator nerve. L4 and 5 form the lumbosacral trunk, which goes down here to hook up with S1, S2, and S3 to form the sciatic nerve. The big one here is pudendal. The rest are your nerves to obturator, internus, superior gemellus, inferior gemellus, and quadratus, and all that stuff. It's almost impossible to see what's what there, okay? It's the same thing over here, L4 and L5 forming your sciatic nerve with S1, 2, and 3, okay? Before I forget. Here's T12, L1, right about here is where the conus medullaris is. So somebody doodled in green on here. That's your filum terminale interna until you get right here. See that little loop? That's the termination of the dural sac. When the filum terminale goes through the dural sac, becomes filum terminale externa to attach to the back of the coccyx to tether the spinal cord from going up in the canal. See these little grayish white things here? Those are your dentate ligaments right there to help prevent this. Okay? Up against the wall for me, please. The model, not you. Remember I showed you last week? This lower extremity is turned out to the side. This is going to be anterior. So this you're seeing the medial aspect of the left leg. Subcostal, iliohypogastric, ilioinguinal, genitofemoral, real small, femoral genital branch, genital femoral branch, lateral femoral cutaneous out here, big femoral here from L2, 3, and 4, giving you your innervation to the muscles of the anterior thigh. Branching off of it is the saphenous nerve, which is sensory in the leg and a little bit of the foot. Okay? Back there. Obturator nerve is right here. L4, 5, 1, 2, and 3 forms your sciatic nerve. Sciatic goes around the back of the thigh, and it's in tibial and common fibular back here. But over here at the head of the fibula, you're going to see superficial fibular here, and you're going to see deep fibular here. We'll talk more about them next week. Superficial fibular innervates the two muscles in the lateral leg, which is going to be fibularis longus, fibularis brevis. Then it goes sensory on the anterior leg, and we'll talk about them next week. The deep fibular innervates all the muscles of the anterior leg, and then it'll give a little sensory branch right here off of the first metatarsal near the big toe. On this side, again, you see the femoral here, and you see the obturator here. Here is your sciatic, but the orientation is the tibial will continue down the back of the leg here. This will be the sural. It does not show the sural real well. I'm just going to call this sural for now, but there's more detail about sural, and all the sural nerves are cutaneous. This is going to be the common fibular that comes lateral here, but this will be only the anterior component, the deep portion that runs down the anterior leg, okay? Try not to screw anything else up. Thank you very much. Lumbosacral trunk, L4, L5, S1, S2, and S3, forming your sciatic nerve here. This is obturator nerve and obturator artery. Sciatic nerve is going to be deep here, because here's your gluteus maximus, here's your gluteus medius. Here's your sciatic nerve coming out from underneath piriformis. Here's your triceps coxa, superior gemellus, obturator internus, inferior gemellus, quadratus femoris. Over here is your tensor fasciolata attaching to the IT band. Semitendinosus with the longer tendon more superficial, covering the fatter semimembranosus, which is deeper. We take them away. Here's long head of biceps. See that very nicely. Here is short head of biceps. Here's sciatic nerve splitting into tibial to go down the back of the leg, common fibular to wrap around the head of the fibula. Tibial is going to innervate all the muscles in the posterior leg that we'll do next week. It runs with the posterior tibial artery. The common fibular will come around the front. The superficial branch will innervate fibularis longus and fibularis brevis. And the deep branch, hold up before I get to deep branch, the superficial, I'll get to next week, is going to break off into medial dorsal cutaneous and intermediate dorsal cutaneous. In my 5 PNS labs, 80% of them got that wrong because they didn't pay attention. Then you got deep fibular down here running with the anterior tibial artery. Deep fibular innervates all the muscles of the anterior leg, and it's going to peek out right there to be sensory between the first and second metatarsals. Good so far? Questions? Good stuff going around. Good so far? Thank you. Didn't need to push. How do you know the anterior from the posterior?
The ventral.
I got the dorsal root ganglion covered. How would you know?
The ventral sulcus.
Anterior median sulcus. Anterior is actually anterior median fissure, which is deeper and wider than the dorsal median sulcus. But there's your dorsal nerve root ganglion. Always think in pictures. Orient yourself, anteriors and posteriors. The blue is dura mater. The gray is arachnoid mater. The gray fibrousy things is called arachnoid trabecula. Okay? Here's your mixed spinal nerve here. This portion is the ventral ramus. This little guy is the dorsal ramus. So all sensory information is mediated here at the dorsal nerve root ganglion. The cell bodies send their axons out as dorsal rootlets into the dorsal horn, where it can synapse on an interneuron and then send a message to the motor cells in the ventral horn that come out the ventral rootlets to the ventral root back to the mixed spinal nerve. When you put your hand down on a hot stove, do you sit there and go, shit, my hand's burning. Oh, I better move it? Or do you just pull it? That's a simple reflex arc. Other sensations, okay? I poke you like that. The receptor picks it up, takes it in here. It then synapses on an interneuron that becomes part of a fiber tract, okay? And the fiber tracts you'll get in CNS, where the sense of me doing this is perceived up here in the brain. And then if I keep doing this, you're going to take your arm and go, get the hell out of here. And then the motor fiber initiates up here, comes down a motor tract, and acts on the cell of the anterior horn, which is all motor. Okay? That's a simple and a more common reflex. You got sensory neurons, you got motor neurons, you got interneurons. There are more interneurons in the body than there are sensory or motor. There is a disease process that strikes these motor cells of the anterior horn. Who wants a wow me? It's a virus that has been basically eliminated.
Polio.
Thank you. Polio virus. Who is the most famous polio patient in American history?
FDR.
FDR, 33rd President of the United States. He could walk, but he was usually had like this. people would hold him up a little bit. He didn't want to be embarrassed. If you ever see him giving a speech, he is holding on to a podium because the horn cells were damaged and he had trouble walking. He would wear big, clunky metal braces. When we went remote during COVID 2 years ago, I watched a 14-hour PBS documentary on the Roosevelts. Absolutely sensational. Teddy Roosevelt and FDR, they were cousins. FDR's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, was actually his 5th or 6th cousin. She didn't have to change her name. Long story. I mean, it was, to me, I was a 48 credit history major. I wanted to be a Russian history professor. Love that shit. All right? Dentate ligaments. What?
What?
What'd you say?
Oh, vodka.
With a splash of amaretto di Serrano. Central canal of the spinal cord where there's also CSF. One unique feature, I don't have enough time to go into all the detail. You see this little thing sticking out here? The posterior horn is also called the posterior cell column. Anterior horn is often called the anterior cell column. This is the intermediate cell column or the lateral horn. It is only found from T1 to L2. That's because this is the site of sympathetic preganglionic cell bodies. Your autonomic nervous system consists of sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions. Sympathetic is fight or flight, okay? You're driving down the highway. You look in the rear view, oh, you just got your driver's license. We don't want go away. You're driving down the highway. You look in the rear view mirror, you see a blue light. After you say, oh shit, what happens to you physiologically?
Start sweating, yeah.
Start sweating. Heart rate goes up. Respiration rate goes up. You perspire. Your pupils dilate. Your bronchi constrict. That is a sympathetic function. It is a fight or flight function. Sympathetic is also called thoracolumbar because the preganglionic cell bodies are found here from T1 to L2. The other half of the autonomic system is the parasympathetic. It's concerned with rest and digest, also known as feed and breed. They work opposite each other. Parasympathetics will constrict the bronchi, constrict the pupils, slow down your heart rate, slow down your respiration rate. If you have a T-bone steak, a baked potato, some broccoli, and some dessert, do you immediately want to get up and go out and run a marathon? Or do you want to just sit your ass down in a chair and relax? The body, when it digests food, creates bicarbonate ions, which raises the pH of your bloodstream to get you to relax. Sympathetics and parasympathetics work in opposition. Sympathetics are thoracolumbar, T1 to L2. Parasympathetics is called craniosacral because it's associated with 4 cranial nerves, S2, 3, and 4 nerves. That is just a brief dipping of autonomics because right there. Last but not least, we know this is a cervical vertebrae. Bifid spinous process, transverse foramen, angle of the facet joints. What else?
Oh, the uncinate process.
Thank you. Uncinate processes or joints of Luschka, raised lateral lips of the vertebral bodies so that the other cervical vertebral bodies sit in the hollow and can't fall off, because if you notice, you got a little more movement in your neck than you do in your mid-back and your low back. But you've got your epidural fat. You see this layer right here that goes all the way around? See this black line? This black line separates the dura from the arachnoid. The pia is completely adhered to the surface of the spinal cord. Dorsal rootlets, dorsal horn, central canal, central commissure, gray matter. Why do you have a central commissure?
Connect.
To
The
do
two-
what?
Connect the two sides.
Why? So the right hand knows what the left hand is doing. Okay? Dorsal rootlets, ventral rootlets, ventral root, dorsal root ganglion. Very clearly defined ventral ramus, dorsal ramus, okay? And if you look real closely in here, see that right in there where the paper clip is? I'm gonna come around.
Okay.
See where the paper clip is? See where the paper clip is? That's the dentate or denticular ligament. Okay? Dentate or denticular ligament.
Can you point at it one more time?
Yes. It's right there.
Right there. Thank you.
It's also right there.
Okay.
Okay?